Hello and welcome to one of Via Satellite's Thursday morning conversations, where we talk about some big industry issues. And delighted today to have somebody new to our Thursday morning conversation. So let's welcome Daniel Gizinski, who's the Chief Strategy Officer of Comtech. Okay. Daniel, welcome. How are you doing?
Hey, Mark. Good morning. Doing really well. Really excited to be here. Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Actually, we did one of these conversations with Comtech a few months back, where we spoke to Ken Peterman, and he discussed the transformation really to sort of one as one Comtech. Can you share an update on the transformation and some of the things that you've seen from your position as the Chief Strategy Officer?
Absolutely. So, I know it's been a few months since Ken joined you on the last Thursday morning conversation. A lot has been happening in the, even just 10 short months since Ken took over as CEO. Really an exciting period of time. I think ultimately we embarked on a transformational change across the organization, one that has been thoughtfully led based on where we understand we are as an organization and where the market is going. Really embracing kind of the unique culture of innovation that's been present within Comtech for many years, but driving closer collaboration with customers than we've ever seen before. We've been identifying and working with new strategic partners, and then ultimately improving the speed and agility at which we're able to operate. In my opinion, this transition couldn't come at a more critical time. The industry is changing around us, and our new approach gives us an opportunity to deliver capabilities that wouldn't have been possible under the old approach. Gives us a chance to skate not to where the puck is, but where it's going to be. 10 months ago when Ken joined and we set out on this journey, I think we all saw that there was a lot of work necessary to get there. I'm pleased to say we've made quite a bit of progress. I think we're seeing in our relationships with customers and in our reported results continued improvement, and we're continuing to drive towards where we're headed as a company. I think ultimately seeking to accelerate global technology trajectories, build technologies that enable us to connect the unconnected and bridge the digital divide. At the end of the day, this is a transition that is by no means easy. A lot of steps that go into it, but I think worthwhile, and I think we're starting to see the fruits of those labors. Bringing the company together under this common strategy has given us the chance to sit back and think about really what the future holds, build that common view, and then drive towards operating from a common platform. Ultimately, this positions Comtech to better empower our customers, giving them the tools, technologies, and capabilities that they need. It also helps us achieve some of our near and long-term goals, make a lasting and positive impact on the world. From my perspective, we're at a watershed moment within the company and within the industry at large. The world's changing around us, and you can point to things like 5G NTN, direct-to-device capabilities, all the way down. I feel like we're very well positioned under Ken's leadership to capitalize on this market inflection that's occurring today and all around us. We're employing what I would say is a startup mentality, kind of that entrepreneurial attitude, but then bringing with that the deep bones and history of a 50-year-old technology company with a deep IP portfolio, hundreds of patents related to satellite and space, as well as to terrestrial and wireless, but with kind of an eye towards an entrepreneurial approach.
No, I always find that combination very interesting when you talk to companies who have been around in the industry a long time and have a great name, as a Comtech does, but are sort of changing the spirit and the nature and the culture of the company. I think that's a sort of very interesting approach. Where would you say you are with that sort of transformation? I mean, obviously, you spoke about sort of 10 months ago, Ken joining, and it's a process that's ongoing. Where would you say you're now at? Do you feel like you're at a point where the changes have been made and it's now a case of sort of executing, or is there still a little bit further to go down the road, so to speak?
I think the short answer I'd like to give to that is we're ahead of schedule, and inevitably, when you have kind of an opportunity to go in, you want to spend some time assessing it. And I think Ken's been very thoughtful in the approach that he's taken. You don't want to go in, and if you have a watch that's running a little bit fast, you don't want to fix it with a hammer. You want to be mindful of the right approach to bring to things, prioritize those low-hanging fruits that generate the greatest bang for the buck. But I think ultimately we've driven quite a bit of the change that I think we're seeking to drive in the organization, and then continuing to push forward with other opportunities for improvement.
Okay, let's talk about some of the partnerships that you've established and talk a little bit more. Then I noticed you have established some very interesting sort of new partnerships recently, working with the likes of eSpace, Descartes Labs, AIMA Networks, Sakil Wishnish. Can you share more about these partnerships and why you've put them together and the real benefits of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think you hit the nail on the head. We've established what I would describe as some, very strategic relationships over the last 6 months. And I think it really runs the gamut. It goes from, the big players. We recently announced that Comtech joined the Amazon Partner Network, capping off some meaningful joint efforts over the last few years. We also, a couple of months ago, announced approval on the Azure Operator Nexus for one of our platforms. So I think working closely with Microsoft and with Amazon, as you mentioned earlier this month, we announced a teaming agreement with eSpace. That's one of the things that I'm really excited about, deploying some really innovative space-based communications architecture and services designed to support IoT capabilities, both in the government and commercial space. I think that partnership delivers some capabilities that go beyond what we would have even imagined were possible just a couple of years ago. And I think you'll see some more from us in this space in the near future. There's also been quite a bit of activity around Evoke, which is the term that we use for our innovation foundry. That's led by our CTO, Anirban Chakraborty. Anirban might be a great candidate for another one of these conversations in the future, as we seek to kind of enable and expand that partner network of different organizations that we're working with. Ultimately, for us, it comes down to speed of delivery. The Evoke technology partners bring into the fold some capabilities that Comtech could build or could develop on our own, but we're able to deliver them on a faster trajectory by partnering with some very innovative folks. And if you look at the list of names that have been publicly announced as members of Evoke, it's folks like Circle, who brings some pretty mature IoT capabilities and interfaces to play. That was announced back in February. Wishnish, who has some advanced distributed ledger tools and techniques, as well as in development some post-quantum cryptography capabilities. Descartes Labs, who brings to bear an industry-leading cloud-native supercomputer capability, as well as some predictive insights. And then Arna Networks, who joined us for a via satellite webinar not long ago, who builds a zero-touch edge orchestration approach that allows for very quick setup of 5G networks, and we view as a key part of the future 5G NTN SATCOM convergence. Ultimately, all of these partners are helping us push the boundaries of what's possible today, what we're able to deliver to customers, both from a capability perspective as well as on an accelerated timescale. You'll see kind of throughout that list of partners a recurring theme of convergence, which we view as an ongoing activity in our market today, in an area of huge excitement. Our global communications infrastructure is on the cusp of an enormous change. Convergence of space, satellite, terrestrial, wireless technologies is going to fundamentally change the connectivity landscape over the next few years. Ultimately, true hybrid networks need to be based on open standards. They need to be interoperable, and they need to be focused on delivering the customer goal of seamless and edgeless connectivity, which we believe is meaningfully demanded by the market, and something that has enormous potential for us. Ultimately, for us, every one of these partnerships that we've put together is built on the principle of delivering unparalleled capability to our customers on an incredibly accelerated timescale. The world's changing faster than it ever has been before. And we're leveraging some of the great progress and technology development from these partners when appropriate to move faster and deliver on our customers' timescales.
I mean, it's an interesting observation, because when I looked at that list, it's a very sort of diverse set of partnerships that you're putting together here. Some some companies that are maybe more well known in the satellite sector, and some others more maybe on the telecom side. Are you still on the lookout for further partnerships? Can we expect to see more of this type of thing from Comtech?
So I think we're definitely looking to add partners to that network as it makes sense. And ultimately, we've built a flexible company, right? And the idea is when there's a vacuum in the market, your customers will pull a flexible company to fill that vacuum. And so we continue to work and we continue to look for the right opportunities to add enabling capabilities and technologies.
No, that's super interesting, and we'll definitely keep an eye out for that. Let's talk about a little bit about the blending of satellite, space, terrestrial, and wireless technologies. And we often talk about the move to sort of hybrid network infrastructures. Can you sort of expand a little bit about that, and what's sort of the next phase? What is the next phase of that looking like?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think a couple of things are true, right? The first is, the term hybrid networks can be used to mean a lot of things, ranging from, kind of the multi-orbit, multi-frequency satellite network term, where if you're blending geo and a medium Earth orbit satellite, that could be viewed as a hybrid. And that certainly is, kind of what we view as stage one. But ultimately, we're starting to see a standardization that allows for the blending of satellite and terrestrial networks. And in my mind, that starts to get really interesting as you watch the results coming out of the 3GPP working groups towards standardizing on newer forms of 5G NTN. Quite a bit of focus is being put on how do you bring connectivity to the most people throughout the world at a reduced cost of ownership and a cost of operation. We're really excited about that here. Ultimately, it's going to be a key enabler for connecting the unconnected. And then bringing forward, blended and meaningful, insightful connectivity, right? So not just providing a pipe, but getting data to a spot where you're able to feed it into your business or operational requirements and make intelligent decisions on it. Ultimately, the target is always on delivering a seamless customer experience. The seams in the network should be completely invisible. When a customer switches from one network to another, it should be completely transparent. That's an axiom that is simple to state, but really hard to execute. There's a lot that goes into it from an underlying technology perspective. So we're focused on developing capabilities that enable and anticipate this network blending. Ultimately, we've gone through recently a couple of demos recently in Greece, showcasing our ability to blend satellite and terrestrial technologies to deliver 5G capabilities to remote, unserved areas. A hybrid design technology was a significant enabler in this demonstration, showing high-speed 5G backhaul in a previously unconnected area. This is a kind of continuously recurring theme that we see in both commercial space as they seek to deliver connectivity in remote areas, but then also in the government space with initiatives like Joint All-Domain Command and Control that come down to, at the end of the day, the same goal of how do you get connectivity to a remote area, and then how do you get the meaningful parts of that information back to the spot where the decision is being made. The more that we're able to deliver that decision-making capability to the edge with AI, ML, and some of the other predictive analytics that we bring, the simpler those networks get and the easier they are to scale across the globe.
No, it's fascinating stuff. Now, you and I know each other from our work at Cybersat. Daniel is on our Cybersat advisory board, and we're very appreciative to have you on our board and helping us with those events. So let's talk. Let's move the conversation to cybersecurity. I mean, that's always it's a big topic of conversation now, particularly as we talk about more complex hybrid networks and sort of the evolution that you were talking about in your earlier answer. So can you sort of discuss the importance of cybersecurity as it relates to these new hybrid infrastructures?
Absolutely. So there's a few things that are true, and we definitely see in the news cybersecurity coming up as a topic far more frequently than it did just a few years ago. And I think there's a heightened awareness across the globe on just how critical it is to protect infrastructure and to ensure that the systems that we're delivering and fielding for customers are resilient and they're dependable. In a lot of cases, I think in the past, some of the satellite systems relied on their customer to define what was required from a security perspective, and we're having to move into a little bit more of a leadership role and making sure that we're building and delivering systems that have cybersecurity designed in from the ground up. For hybrid networks in particular, it's a point of interest. They're designed to allow for greater resiliency, a network that survives, kind of changing conditions or a roaming user. But they also come with a degree of risk. They introduce complexity, and sometimes you can wind up with a network that's only as strong as its weakest link, meaning that if you have a bridged hybrid network with a perimeter-based access model, if there's a weak spot on the terrestrial side, that adversary may have access to the satellite side as well. So once the threat permeates through a single weak spot, it may have access to broad swaths of the network. The emergence of convergence is driving the demand for what I would say is a layered zero trust approach. So security architectures that can put up additional protections if and as needed, kind of revalidating and re-identifying users as they traverse the network. That comes with some unique challenges. It needs to be lightweight. I like to use the analogy of my phone, where as you try to log into your phone, greater security historically meant a longer password. It meant hey, it's not a 4-digit password, now it's a 9-digit password or a 10-digit password, which is a hassle every time I have to log in. And the introduction of things like biometrics reduces quite a bit of that hassle. And so I think that's going to be an important part of the development of converged networks is how do we bring zero trust to bear without adding a meaningful burden to the operator. At Comtech, we're focused on blending cybersecurity into every aspect of what we do. People, process, technologies, focused on supporting an end user's ability to stay one step ahead against a threat landscape that's continuing to increase in pace. We feel the most effective cybersecurity solutions aren't just about hardware or systems or software. They require an end-to-end view, multiple security layers from a hardware software architecture perspective, but also taking into account the people side of the equation. There was a recent Verizon study that estimated that 3/4 of breaches of networks involved a human element, meaning a person had their password compromised, maybe they wrote it down on a Post-it note, or fell victim to a phishing attack. So we've been able to leverage both our expertise at building resilient hardware and software, but then also in training nearly a dozen U.S. agencies and services on how to improve their cyber posture. To feed that into systems that aren't just effective from a design perspective, but they're also thoughtfully designed to account for the human element.
So what are sort of the takeaways, when we're looking at sort of cybersecurity now? I mean, we all know it's growing importance, but when we're looking at cybersecurity and space assets, what do you think are the key things that Comtech and the industry needs to focus on now?
I think there's a few recurring points that we see coming up. The first is the impact of advanced computing, and that kind of breaks down into the development of AI and ML tools, but then also the development of quantum compute. And I look at the AI ML impacts as having a little bit of a cat and mouse effect, where from an offensive perspective, it allows for folks to launch attacks at a much lower cost. And for an attacker that's not a state-sponsored actor going after critical infrastructure, they're looking to turn a profit. And so their goal is to launch attacks that have a reasonably high probability of returning value greater than the cost of the attack. As the cost of that attack goes down, the number of attacks that they can launch goes up, and the number of targets that previously weren't worth it continues to grow. And so it requires a degree of countering that increased threat vector with some AI-based defenses. So making sure that satellite operators are focused on delivering capabilities that have resilience built into kind of a broader threat set. That's a unique challenge in the satellite space, where a lot of the hardware on the space side was fielded with flight heritage as the primary focus rather than on modern cybersecurity. And on the ground side as well, where many of those systems, even when there may be a more secure software load available, some of those operators aren't running the most recent version of software. And so developing approaches where it's a field software upgrade, something that can be done over the air, has been a big area of focus for us at Comtech. Is how do we enable our customers to keep their systems up to date and secure with minimal overhead, minimal downtime, because we all understand that that's a cost for our customers. Quantum presents a pretty unique risk where the levels of encryption that have been used on satellite systems for the past few decades are rapidly approaching a point where they may not hold up to a quantum crypto attack. So we've been, really focused on, how do we build out a network that has rapidly updatable crypto to continue to change pace with a rapidly increasing threat landscape. But then also other approaches beyond just simple cryptography of how do we spread out data to protect it. One of the risks that we see today is what they call a hold now, decrypt later attack, where you can go listen to network traffic and then potentially decrypt it at some point in the future with a quantum computer. There's some techniques that we're leveraging from a smart networks perspective to spread data across multiple networks to make that sort of attack more difficult. I think the other big shift that we see, right, is the focus from well-funded, well-resourced approaches to cyber attacks, including state-sponsored actors. I think this really increases the focus on things like critical infrastructure, which satellite communications are certainly part of. I think in some cases, some satellite networks were untargeted because of low expected value, but they may have strategic value. So we're not immune to that concern. And I think that's something that we across the industry need to be focused on. How do we update some of the legacy systems that are out there? And then how do we ensure that future systems are being developed with an eye towards cybersecurity, not just at the time that they're fielded, but understanding that the landscape will change over their design life.
I mean, it's such a fascinating topic. I know we could talk a lot longer on that, but we're just about out of time. Daniel, I want to thank you for coming on today. It's always a pleasure to talk with you and catch up with you. And it's also a real pleasure for us to hear about the transformation of Comtech. I mean, it's a company that's via satellite we've known well for decades, and we've covered the company, and it's one of the most well-known names, I think, in our sector. So to hear about the transformation, some of the exciting partnerships that you're doing, as well as this sort of new approach and this entrepreneurial spirit it's really exciting to hear. And we wish you and the company best of luck. I imagine as the Chief Strategy Officer, it's a very interesting, fast-paced time for you right now, and there's a lot of new opportunities, new partnerships. So we look forward to hearing about those. We look forward to seeing you obviously at Cybersat in November. And yeah, we appreciate your time, and we wish you and your colleagues at Comtech the best of luck with these ambitious plans.
Mark, thanks for having me on.